Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Well, guys, lots of great news has come out in the last 24 hours. First of all, we've got some comments from Mark Meadows on the illegal actions of James Comey. Time to pay the piper. Next, we've got some news about DOJ Inspector General Horowitz's testimony from yesterday. He's made some interesting comments during that time. Also, Justin Trudeau getting canceled. My good friend Orphan Anon sent over some great stuff about that. Three times this guy found to be culturally appropriating in the last 12 hours. Then there is a lawsuit by Laura Loomer against Facebook. That has brought up some really interesting things, forcing Facebook to prove that they are actually a publisher and not a platform. And finally, we're going to end up with Janet Napolitano, former Attorney General, resigning from her position at the University of California. We're going to get into all this and more, and we'll be right back after a quick word from my sponsor. Over the last 30 days, Capital One, the Central Bank of Europe, and the great state of Texas have all been hacked in major data breaches. This is starting to get really out of control, guys. Who's going to be next? One of the best things you can do to help protect yourself online is to invest in a VPN, a virtual private network. This allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. VPNs can be used to shield your browsing activity from prying eyes, whether you're on a public Wi-Fi connection, in a foreign country, or just at home. Here, let me show you how easy this is to do. You just go to www.virtualshield.com, download the free 30-day trial, install it, and click Connect. This month, Virtual Shield is offering their anniversary special of 30% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, Residential Access, and VIP Performance plans for as low as a cup of coffee. Sign up for a free 30-day trial to try Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is about. You've got nothing to lose. All right, starting out today from my good friend and fellow researcher Methods, Representative Mark Meadows is talking about James Comey's problems in relation to the illegal activities he performed while working for the government. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what Representative Meadows had to say.
Listen, James Comey's problems are just now starting. We've seen enough documents. We know the IG's report is coming out. And listen, the only thing that's been consistent about Director James Comey is his willingness to go after this president, and it's time that we hold him accountable.
Ooh, sick burn, Meadows. Gotta love it. James Comey is a known liar, a leaker, and an all-around dishonest guy. It is really time for James Comey to own up to his actions that he played in the Spygate scandal, everything that he did to try to remove our president from office, and everything that he did probably prior to that. I think that all that stuff is going to come out, so let's continue to watch. Hopefully, once this IG report drops, we will have slam dunk charges on Comey, just as our favorite Anon has said. Now, on that note, from yesterday's testimony, DOJ IG Horowitz has stated that corrupt deep state actors in the FBI and the DOJ were shocked when Comey leaked his memos that killed their case against Trump. Well, that's pretty weird. The corrupt cops at the FBI that protected James Comey from crimes didn't realize that by doing so, they ruined their chances of attaching obstruction to candidate and President Trump. According to the DOJ's IG report on James Comey, Comey leaked his memos to his friend, who he later described as his lawyer, which protected him by implementing attorney-client privilege. This protected Comey from the crime of leaking information to the press unlawfully. But Comey was also protected by his fellow gangsters at the FBI when they labeled the memos that he leaked other than classified. If they were labeled classified, Comey would be in serious trouble for leaking classified information. The FBI isn't supposed to let on that there are any active investigations, let alone leak evidence from their investigations. So, what was the FBI's supposed basis for obstruction of justice charges against Trump? Number 1, Trump's firing of Comey. Number 2, Trump's asking Comey to let Flynn go as outlined in memo number 4. So Trump's comments about letting Flynn go was the basis, the evidence for the obstruction of justice. That in and of itself should mean that information related to this was highly classified. But Comey's memo number 4 was labeled by the FBI as unofficial business use. How can your prime evidence in a case be labeled unofficial business use? The reason why the FBI labeled it that way was because Comey gave them memo number 4 to his buddies and to the press. It's the same tactic they pulled when they relabeled Clinton's crimes regarding her emails. I mean, either it's evidence or it isn't, because they sure were using it as evidence. Here's the even bigger issue about this, though. In order to even begin to try to charge Trump with obstruction of justice, you need both President Trump's firing of Comey and his asking Comey to go easy on General Flynn. Of course, we know now that Flynn was set up by the corrupt FBI and admitted no crime related to his firing, and has been indicted of no crime related to his firing. You can't have one without the other. If the only evidence you have is Comey's firing, that proves nothing. You can probably try to begin to charge Trump with obstruction of justice if you have just the Flynn comment alone, but obviously they didn't feel as though that was enough by itself. Otherwise, they'd have charged Trump back in February when he said it, but they didn't. This means Comey screwed the investigation when he leaked his memos to the press. If they tried to charge Trump with anything related to the leaks, then they'd have to charge Comey with leaking highly classified information. What an idiot. Which means that on day 1, Mueller knew without a doubt he had absolutely no case. I see now. And that's why the AG refused to charge Comey, because then they'd have to admit that it actually was evidence. No wonder the corrupt FBI's reaction to Comey's leaking of his memos was reportedly shock. All right, so our friend, aka Real Dirty, the Dirty Truth, went ahead and got some interesting clips from that testimony. We're going to go ahead and listen to those, and we'll be right back.
Can I ask for 5 minutes?
Yeah, for Mr. Horowitz. I want to direct your attention to conclusions involving Comey failing to safeguard the FBI's Flynn investigation, which is going on at the time. You wrote Comey's closest senior FBI advisors were shocked when they learned the former FBI director instructed the release of his memo containing information about the ongoing FBI investigation, right?
That's correct.
What specifically did they say to your office?
I don't have the report in front of me, but I remember them saying words like shock, surprise, those kinds of words when they learned that he had released the information through Mr. Richmond to a reporter.
And they were unsolicited reactions?
Yes, they were during testimony under oath that were recorded.
Why do you think they were shocked or stunned?
Well, it was completely inconsistent, as we wrote in the report, with department policy and how we expect, and I think they expect, FBI employees to handle law enforcement information.
Okay, one advisor used the term disappointed to describe Comey's misconduct. Can you explain why they'd be disappointed in the FBI director?
Well, I'm not going to speak to what was in their mind when they said the words, but I can say again, I think there's a general understanding in the department and within the FBI that when you have law enforcement information, you don't disclose it to the press when there's an ongoing criminal investigation, which there was at the time.
Okay.
Absolutely screwed themselves. You have to love this.
Mr. Horowitz, let me pick up right where the gentleman from Florida was. And I appreciate the letter you sent to Chairman and Ranking Member last Friday on the upcoming FISA report that is now with the Attorney General. But let me go first to what Mr. Stubbe just talked about. Have you been asked to testify by Chairman Cummings or Chairman Nadler about the Comey IG report you released 3 weeks ago?
No, I'm not.
Have you been approached at all by the chairman of those respective committees?
Personally, I have not. I can check with anybody else in my organization, but I'm not aware of any.
They've been asked you about it?
Oh, I'm sure they've asked about it.
But ask about you testifying and answering questions about that specific report.
About a hearing, I don't believe there have been discussions.
Have you had any discussions with Chairman Cummings or Chairman Nadler about the upcoming FISA report, particularly subsequent to this letter, or even before this letter, about the FISA report when you might testify in front of either committee?
We haven't had, to my knowledge, discussions about testimony or a hearing.
But
We've had discussions generally about the report and timing, but not about.
I think in your letter you point out you talked to over 100 interviews, over 1 million records your team examined. You spent a lot of time on this report. This is pretty significant. You would anticipate testifying in front of both the House Oversight Committee, which has jurisdiction over the Inspector Generals, and the House Judiciary Committee. Is that right?
I guess I would say as to any of my reports. I always am available and willing to testify. I'm not sure I'd want to advocate for being in 4 hearings, 2 here and 2 on the Senate side. So,
well, we combined them last year, a year and a half ago.
Yes.
On one. We did that. So all I know is I think, as Mr. Stubbe said, this is important information, and frankly, the American people would like to see it. Let me go if I.
Of course, the American people want to see it, but why would the members of Congress, the Democrats in Congress, want to see it? The answer is they wouldn't, because it's going to destroy their case in the exact same way that James Comey destroyed their case by leaking those confidential memos, and then the FBI had to make them not classified and say that they weren't part of an investigation. Well, guess what? This is going to be very, very interesting in the coming days, you guys. Horowitz dropped a lot of BOMBs while he was testifying, and I know that Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, the good guys in Congress, the white hats in Congress, they are going to follow up on all of this. Back to the article. Now, what this means is they defeated themselves. By leaking this information to the press, they had a conundrum. If they charged Trump with obstruction of justice, then they were forced to also charge Comey with leaking highly classified information to the press. In chess parlance, it would be a stalemate, which Trump would probably ultimately win, since the paragraph 1 would come from a criminal and a liar, James Comey. The classification review was nothing more than, now that we're really screwed here, how do we salvage this mess? Well, that's why Mueller classified Comey's evidence both ways, both classified and unclassified. They would pursue the obstruction of justice charges privately, quietly, treating Comey's memos as highly classified, while their public face would be treating them as unclassified so that Comey wouldn't be charged. That's why Trump's legal team told Mueller, "We will tear you to shreds in a court of law," and Mueller backed down. Corrupt Mueller knew he would lose. The deep state and the corrupt FBI and the DOJ had no case for removing President Trump. He committed no crimes, nor did Flynn for that matter. They set them up, but thanks to corrupt FBI Director James Comey, they screwed their own coup. Obviously, these guys really did a number here. They couldn't even get their own coup right, so that's why they've been trying so hard with all of these other things. And that's why Nadler and his cohorts don't want the IG coming to testify, because things like this will be revealed. They want to continue to perpetrate this fraud on the American public, making people think that there is some evidence or reason for impeachment. There's no evidence. There's no reason for impeachment. The president has done nothing wrong. It's time for the president. It's time for Flynn. It's time for anybody who's been caught up in this fake, phony investigation to be completely vindicated. Let's get the real criminals and bring them to justice. Well, guys, it looks like cancel culture is catching up with Justin Trudeau very fast. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last 12 hours, photos or videos of Justin Trudeau have surfaced showing him to be engaged in acts of, shall we say, cultural appropriation. Global News Canada obtained a video of progressive Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the act of coloring his face, a 3rd instance of this type of dress to surface in just a 12-hour period. The video of Trudeau in this darkened face is from the early 90s. The video, obtained exclusively by Global News, shows Trudeau covered in what appears to be dark makeup and raising his hands in the air while laughing, sticking his tongue out and making faces. He's wearing a white t-shirt and his jeans are ripped at the knees. It appears as though his arms and legs are covered in makeup as well. It does not appear the video was shot at the same time and place as the other photos of Trudeau in this racist makeup. Now, Trudeau apologized to the press last night for his lapse in judgment. It all started Wednesday night when a photo of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dressed in brown face from a 2001 Arabian Nights party surfaced. The photo, obtained by Time magazine, shows the Prime Minister wearing the inappropriate costume at an event held by West Point Grey Academy, the private school where he was teaching at the time. Trudeau was wearing a turban and robes with his face and hands covered in dark makeup in the yearbook photo, which was provided to Time by Vancouver businessman Michael Adamson. And there, we can see it right there. That is Justin Trudeau, and he's dressed like an Arabian night. A second photo surfaced on Wednesday night of Justin Trudeau in a more dark-faced makeup in a talent show at John Brebeuf High School. Trudeau is singing Deo. 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 Here he is right there. Clearly see it. Looks like Justin Trudeau has a habit of culturally appropriating other people's races and cultures, trying to make himself look like something he's not. Now, the question is, did Justin Trudeau think that this was just a joke, or was he actually trying to denigrate these people that he's pretending to be? I tend to think that this is a costume party, so, whatever. But this right here, this is in poor taste, and I do believe that this is in poor taste as well. Now, I don't personally think that Justin Trudeau needs to be canceled, but I think that this is an excellent example of how these people will engage in this cancel culture, trying to get people completely removed from society, their names, their faces just thrown out. But in fact, they have been engaging in this type of behavior. Would I dress like this? Absolutely not, because I feel like it's totally wrong. But I think that it is a perfect example of how insane our culture has become, how the way that the SJWs have taken over, and the way that they're trying to characterize things. Again, it is a lot of hypocrisy on full display, because Justin Trudeau is the type of person who would ask for someone to be canceled because they engaged in this very type of behavior. Now, Laura Loomer, she's got a couple of lawsuits against some social media companies right now. And she is, through her lawsuit, forcing Facebook to admit that it's a publisher, despite Mark Zuckerberg's lies to Congress, which we have on video. In May, Facebook announced it had banned several high-profile conservative personalities from their platform, including an incoming ban on the Facebook-owned Instagram. They labeled conservatives dangerous. Milo Yiannopoulos, Laura Loomer, and all accounts related to AJ, including Paul Joseph Watson, were the main targets of Facebook's latest purge and were labeled dangerous by the social media giant. To draw away from criticism about only banning pro-Trump figures, Facebook also claimed to be taking action against Louis Farrakhan, the World War II leader-loving Nation of Islam leader. The company alleges that all individuals or accounts engaged in the following behaviors, according to a statement given to pro-censorship CNN reporter Oliver Darcy. At the same time, Facebook has been eliminating billions of page views to conservative publishers. Laura Loomer took action and filed a lawsuit against far-left Facebook. Earlier this week, Loomer got Facebook to admit to being a publisher. Let's go ahead and take a look at these documents. All right, so shows right here. Under well-established law, neither Facebook nor any publisher can be liable for failing to publish someone else's message. This directly contradicts Facebook's own argument that they are a platform. Here it is. It's in writing from Facebook. They say they are a publisher. This was a huge development. Chadwick Moore on Twitter says, "This is huge. Facebook just admitted in federal documents that they are indeed a publisher, not a platform, and they are demanding First Amendment protections from Laura Loomer's defamation lawsuit. This means Mark Zuckerberg lied to Congress." In the motion, Facebook says, to the extent that Ms. Loomer's claim targets Facebook's decision to deactivate her accounts, it is also deficient. Under well-established law, neither Facebook nor any other publisher can be liable for failing to publish someone else's message. Facebook also says Loomer claims Facebook labeled her as a dangerous person who promotes hate. Yet the First Amendment has long protected such statements because they are opinions that are not capable of being proven true or false. As Culture reported, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg previously told Congress he does not believe Facebook is a media company. Here's a video of Zuckerberg lying to Congress about being a publisher. Let's go ahead and take a look at this clip.
I think about 140 million Americans get their news from Facebook, and when you mentioned to Senator Cornyn, you said you are responsible for your content. So which are you? Are you a tech company, or are you the world's largest publisher? Because I think that goes to a really important question on what form of regulation or government action, if any, we would take.
Senator, this is a really big question. I view us as a tech company because the primary thing that we do is build technology and products.
But you said you're responsible for your content, which makes
exactly.
you kind of a publisher, right?
Well, I agree that we're responsible for the content, but we don't produce the content. I think that when people ask us if we're a media company or a publisher, my understanding of what the heart of what they're really getting at is, do we feel a responsibility for the content on our platform? The answer to that, I think, is clearly yes. But I don't think that that's incompatible with fundamentally at our core being a technology company where the main thing that we do is have engineers and build products.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan.
What a weasel. So Laura Loomer is a divisive figure. I am not going to try to mince words about that. Love her or hate her, this lawsuit that she's brought is extremely important. I think that it was high time that someone got Facebook to admit in federal court that they themselves were a publisher, because now it changes the game entirely. This is that protection that we've talked about so many times on this program. Publisher or platform. We say they are publishers. They say they are a platform. This gets to the heart of the argument about whether or not this is a free speech issue. Should they be allowed to delete people based on their thoughts and opinions? And the fact that Laura has got them to admit this in court is going to be massive. This means a lot of damages that could be liable by Facebook for many, many individuals. Anybody who has had themselves censored or had themselves removed from the platform. So like I said, love Laura Loomer, hate Laura Loomer, it doesn't matter. This is actually really good work right here. All right, and next from my friend and fellow researcher Methods, Donald Trump is there down at the border talking about the wall and a lot more. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this clip that Methods was able to grab for us.
The FBI and FISA. We heard these reports a week or so ago that Andrew McCabe might be indicted. It hasn't happened. The report came out on Comey. It was kind of a slap on the wrist. Are you worried that some of these guys who you believe were going after you are going to get off the hook?
Well, the report on Comey was a horrible report on him, and you'll have to ask the Attorney General about whatever is going on. And on McCabe, certainly what he's done is just despicable. But we'll see what happens. We'll see where it all goes. I think that there's a lot of things happening right now, but we'll see what happens.
Jimmy?
Like President Trump just said, like I've always said, these things are happening. They're happening behind the scenes. Just because we don't know about it doesn't mean that it's not going to take place. President Trump, he's not worried about these people getting off scot-free and not being prosecuted for something. As I've maintained for a long time, they will be prosecuted on slam dunk charges for very, very important things. And it's not just going to be little clickbait types of charges like special counsel's office was going after Trump's people for. These people are guilty of treason. Guantanamo Bay, get ready. And finally, Janet Napolitano is resigning from the University of California as their president. UC California President Janet Napolitano announced Wednesday she will leave her post in August 2020, ending a 6-year tenure leading the 10-campus system, during which she championed climate, gender, and immigration policies, but sparred with state officials over tuition and spending. So the reason I think this is important is because it's yet another instance of a high-profile individual announcing their retirement. They are leaving. What is the reason she is leaving for? Well, I think that Janet Napolitano knows that she could potentially be caught up in a very major scandal. We all know about my good friend Jeffrey Peterson, who's joined us here on the program many times in the past. He knows Janet Napolitano. He used to work with Janet Napolitano, and he knows the measure of her character. It's not a good look. Janet Napolitano is probably going to be brought into this entire scandal that is unfolding right now down in Mexico and with the Democrats in California and across the country. So we're going to have to continue to watch. Janet Napolitano, maybe justice is coming for you. And finally, from my good friend White Hat, a very interesting article from the Epoch Times entitled "Thousands in China Exposed to Mind Control Technology Seek Answers." The secretive technology is kept under wraps, but tens of thousands in China say they have suffered from its deleterious effects. Through online forums, many have shared about how they suddenly experienced mind-altering symptoms, such as hearing voices or seeing images that others can't. They believe they've been targeted by authorities as unwitting mind control technology test subjects. The symptoms are similar to those reported by several U.S. diplomats working at the U.S. consulate in Guangzhou, China, in China's Guangdong province. They say they heard abnormal sounds and felt sensations of air pressure. Afterward, they showed signs of mild traumatic brain injury. Jenny Lee, a spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, told the Associated Press at the time that a U.S. government employee first reported a variety of physical symptoms between late 2017 and April 2018. At the time, the U.S. State Department said it would investigate the incident, noting that it was similar to an incident in 2017 when about 40 diplomats at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba, also reported falling ill after hearing an unusual sound. That led to speculation that they were attacked by a sonic or electromagnetic weapon. Remember that, guys? Brain scans of affected U.S. Embassy staff in Cuba revealed abnormalities in their brain tissue. Now, a China-based NGO, whose name translates to Against Concealed Technical Control in English, was established to assist victims of such attacks to file lawsuits against local authorities. The Chinese-language Epoch Times interviewed several victims as well as the NGO's representatives who recounted their experiences. A man using the surname of Zong to protect himself from reprisals by the Chinese regime has organized victims to file joint lawsuits against 24 provincial governments since 2016, as well as 6 national-level lawsuits since 2017. Zong said that the victims come from different age, social, educational, and working backgrounds and are from places all across China. That's led him to believe that provincial governments are each involved in their own mind control testing. Victims have reported experiencing similar symptoms since the 1980s. For decades, victims felt mental and physical distress, with some choosing to take their own lives as a result of the torment. But local courts have refused to hear the victims' cases, and many are confined at psychiatric hospitals as a result. Zong said that in an attempt to silence him, authorities have also forced him into a psychiatric hospital. Li Da, an engineer and former deputy general manager at the Shanghai Taido Control Engineering Company, said he was a victim of mind control technology. He told the Chinese-language Epoch Times that beginning in 2015, many victims joined an online message board called Global Mind Control Forum to share their experiences. By the time the forum was shut down by censors in 2017, it had more than 70,000 members who registered with their real names, valid contact information, and their reported symptoms. Now, on those symptoms, a man from Beijing, surnamed Wang, a former director of the sports division at a large China media group, told the Chinese-language Epoch Times that around 2016, he began hearing extraneous noises whenever he picked up his phone, including during phone calls with his mother in the United States. I kept hearing a third person talking to me during the phone calls. At first, Wang thought his hearing was failing him. He went to see the doctor, who told him his hearing was fine. Eventually, Wang began hearing voices. Whatever I had on my mind, that voice was able to verbalize it. Moreover, only I could hear it and others couldn't. And the situation got worse. It follows you all the time like a shadow. The voice could get to know your private thoughts and memories, including your weaknesses, shortcomings, past wrongdoings. Then he, the voice, would take advantage of this knowledge to humiliate, scorn, and berate you, and go to the extreme in verbal attacks. Wang tried to figure out the source. In one experiment, I stayed inside a room and used newspaper printing metal plates which can block electromagnetic waves to cover the walls, ceiling, and floor. In this closed room, I found that the disturbing voice could not read my mind anymore. The voice also interfered with his daily living. I would inevitably fall asleep when driving for longer than 10 minutes. It was not a deep sleep, but a state of quasi-sleep, and I had absolutely no control over it, Wang said. He was involved in 4 car crashes in less than a year. That convinced Wang that the voice was controlled by someone conducting a mind control experiment. Wang said that he sought out a friend who is a senior Chinese official in the Communist Party. This friend confirmed to him there is mind control technology and our government treats it very seriously. He believes he's been targeted by authorities because his sister is a technology expert in the United States. He had refused to submit to pressure from the government to convince his sister to supply trade secrets to Beijing. Others who sought help with the NGO recounted similar experiences. Yao Duji, a former manager at a 5-star hotel in Shenzhen City, told the Chinese-language Epoch Times that since 2007, he had been disturbed by strange voices as well as irritating and terrifying messages that would appear before his eyes. Whatever I think about, whatever I do, whatever I see, the voice will verbalize it. Sometime later, there was also intimidating messages saying that someone will kill me or arrest me. At a later stage, as soon as I closed my eyes, unpleasant images would appear in my mind. I lived in terror day in and day out. I felt that my situation was like that of a mental patient. Now, Chinese authorities have admitted to the existence of such technology, but only to explain that other governments have conducted related experiments. Whether the secretly selected test subjects are in a private residence, public space, industrial setting, or on public and private transportation, they can be affected by the chemical and biological stimuli emitted by the mysterious weapon. After a long period of time, the test subjects will become socially isolated and their immunity will go down, leading to various diseases and even death. The Chinese Communist Party's mouthpiece newspaper People's Daily reported in May 2012, soldiers who were attacked by such weapons have altered behavior and become like zombies who can be easily controlled. They can be ordered to turn off the engine of a tank. The report added that mind control technology can cause soldiers to kill each other. There's little scientific research into this type of technology, but satellite imagery confirms that the Chinese regime has developed electromagnetic pulse weapons testing facilities. In January, a U.S. congressional study on nuclear EMP weapons developed by China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea was declassified and published, offering more insight into EMP weapons that can cripple infrastructure. A Chinese NGO published a report in February about mind control technology after affected individuals conducted their own research. A military official based in Zhuzhou City, Jiangsu Province, who was involved in developing mind control technology, told the NGO in June that the Chinese regime has a machine that can interfere or attack a person's brain from thousands of kilometers away. It can connect the person's brain, monitor his or her intention, control his or her autonomic nervous system, and can even stop the beating of his or her heart, the official said. The NGO study concluded that the machine mentioned by the official likely had the ability to emit electromagnetic waves at the same frequencies as a human brain. The device can emit an electromagnetic wave that mimics real human frequencies to the target person, creating a fake feeling or hallucination or controlling the subject's bodily functions, according to the study. Wow. All right, guys, why is this important? Because the symptoms described here, the methods described here, really line up with many people who consider themselves here in the United States to be targeted individuals. Also, people who have committed terrible acts, saying that they heard voices telling them to do this, that they were told to go ahead and commit these acts because unless they did, then the torture was just going to continue. And the Chinese government says right here that other governments have done this. I submit to you that our own government, the deep state cabal that has been in charge of our government and has probably been working with places like China over these past several decades, have been engaged in this exact same type of activity. Many people here in the United States find themselves under this exact same type of attack, and I think that the terrible events that we have seen happening over the past several years that have been increasing in frequency, people where mass casualty events, stuff like that, I think that the answer to that is right here in this article. We need to talk about this a lot more, and we need people who are under this type of attack to come forward, and we need to talk to them about it. Too often they are dismissed as crazies, as having schizophrenia, because the effects of this type of weapon mimic the effects of schizophrenia. We can't allow this type of weapon to be just out there in the public, and the technology behind this has actually been declassified by our own government, or has been at least released by people who were involved in these programs. All right, guys, I think that's all that I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.